The early morning mist clung to the slopes of the small mountain village, wrapping everything in a ghostly shroud. The air smelled of wet earth and pine, fresh and yet oddly heavy, as if it carried a warning that no one could quite name. Birds chirped tentatively, their calls faint and nervous, and somewhere in the distance, a river gurgled, swollen from recent rains. In the midst of this quiet, ordinary day, life in the village went on as usual. But for one man, John Miller, an experienced hiker and amateur geologist, the day was about to become anything but ordinary. John had always been drawn to the mountains. He loved their raw, untamed beauty, the way the wind whispered through the trees and the sun carved golden trails across the slopes. This morning, however, he was on a different mission. He had heard rumors of a rare mineral vein along one of the cliffs near the edge of the village, a discovery that could change his small personal collection forever. With a light pack on his back and a sturdy pair of hiking boots, he set off along the familiar trail. Following him, as always, was Max, his golden retriever. Max was no ordinary dog. He had a quiet intelligence that seemed almost uncanny, a sixth sense that John had come to rely on over the years. Max had been with him through storms, treks across treacherous terrain, and countless near misses that John sometimes thought of only in hindsight. Today, Max trotted beside him, ears perked and eyes scanning the environment with a vigilance that John often envied. As they climbed higher, the trail narrowed, winding along steep cliffs and dense forests. The earth beneath their feet was damp, loose in places, and the trees shivered under the weight of the morning dew. John moved carefully, aware that a single misstep could be disastrous. Yet Max seemed to sense more than the physical dangers. His behavior was changing, subtly at first, then more pronounced. He slowed his pace, sniffing the air, ears swiveling like radar dishes, tail stiffening. John noticed it and frowned. "What is it, boy?" he asked, crouching to pat Max's head. The dog didn't respond in the usual way, no wag, no playful bark. Instead, he let out a low, almost human-like whine, his gaze fixed on something invisible beyond the trail. John's pulse quickened. He trusted Max more than any instrument, any warning system he had ever used. There was a reason he called him his guardian angel on four legs. They reached a narrow ledge overlooking a deep ravine, where the recent rains had made the soil unstable. John stepped forward to get a better view, unaware that the ground beneath him had begun to shift. Max suddenly lunged forward, barking fiercely, his body pressed against John's legs. Startled, John stumbled back, brushing his hand along the cliff edge. His heart pounded as he looked down at the steep drop, realizing that Max had just prevented a catastrophic fall. But Max wasn't done. His behavior grew more insistent, circling John, barking, growling, his hackles raised. John tried to calm him. "Easy, Max. It's okay. We're fine." But Max's eyes were locked on a slope above them, the loose soil, the jagged rocks. And then he did something John had never seen him do before. He darted up the path, stopping at a point that seemed random, then barking and digging at the ground with urgency. John, feeling uneasy, followed him. As he approached, he noticed subtle signs that Max had been reacting to instinctively. The soil was trembling, small pebbles rolling down the slope, a faint but distinct rumble echoing through the ravine. His stomach twisted. He had studied landslides before, and the signs were unmistakable. The mountain was about to give way. "Max, you're telling me to move," John whispered, a chill running down his spine. The dog barked sharply, circling him, nudging him toward the forested path leading back down. John acted immediately. He grabbed his pack and bolted, following Max's guidance. Behind them, the sound grew louder, a low, rumbling roar that shook the very ground. Dust and loose stones began cascading down the mountainside. The first massive chunk of soil broke free just as they reached a safer point, smashing down the trail they had been moments before. John barely had time to comprehend the destruction. Trees toppled like dominoes, rocks slammed into the ground, and the roar of the landslide filled the valley like thunder. He collapsed on the grass, chest heaving, his mind struggling to grasp what had just happened. Max, panting but alert, stayed close, eyes scanning for any other danger. John's hands trembled as he hugged Max, realizing that the dog's intuition had saved his life. He had always thought of Max as a companion, loyal and loving, but today, the golden retriever had proven himself as a protector in the most literal sense. He whispered over and over, "You saved me, Max, you saved me." The dog simply rested his head on John's shoulder, as if acknowledging the praise, but not needing it. The aftermath was surreal. From their vantage point, John could see the full scope of the destruction. The trail they had just walked was obliterated. Huge boulders lay scattered like toys, and the forest had been scarred, trees stripped of their bark and branches. The villagers below, hearing the roar and seeing the clouds of dust, would later speak of the mountain's fury, never knowing the quiet heroism that had prevented a tragedy. As they slowly made their way back toward the village, John couldn't stop thinking about the events of the morning. He had always believed in careful planning, in preparation, but today had reminded him that sometimes, instinct, intuition, and trust in those closest to you mattered more than any map, any equipment, any knowledge. Max had felt the danger before it had fully manifested, had guided him to safety, and had done so without hesitation, without fear. When they reached the edge of the village, the sun had begun to burn away the mist, casting long shadows across the streets. Villagers going about their chores noticed John and Max coming down from the mountains, mud-stained and tired, but otherwise unharmed. They called out, noticing the distress in John's eyes, the urgency in Max's steps. John tried to explain, but words seemed inadequate. How could he explain that a dog's sixth sense had outpaced years of human knowledge and experience? How could he make them understand that a simple walk in the mountains had turned into a brush with death, and that Max had been the reason he survived? For John, the lesson was clear. Life was unpredictable, and danger often came without warning. But courage and loyalty, especially the kind embodied by his golden retriever, were forces stronger than fear. Max had proven that heroism didn't always come with accolades or medals. Sometimes, it came in the form of silent vigilance, unwavering loyalty, and a deep, instinctive understanding of the world around you. That evening, as John tended to Max, brushing the mud from his fur, he reflected on what had happened. He realized he owed his life to this extraordinary animal, not just for the intervention itself, but for the connection they shared. It was a bond forged in countless walks, adventures, and quiet moments, strengthened by the ultimate act of protection. Max had not just saved him from a landslide, he had reminded John of the fragile beauty of life, the importance of trust, and the undeniable power of instinct. As night fell and the village settled into its peaceful rhythm, John and Max sat outside, the stars beginning to pierce the sky with cold, silver light. John looked down at Max, his loyal companion, and for the first time, he understood something profoundly simple yet endlessly complex. Sometimes heroes don't wear uniforms, and sometimes the bravest acts are carried out without words. Max had shown him that, and in that quiet, shared understanding, John felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude and awe. The world seemed larger, more mysterious, and yet more beautiful than ever before. And for John, one truth stood above all. Life was precious, and loyalty, courage, and intuition were forces that could move mountains, or save lives. And somewhere deep inside him, John knew that this was only the beginning of Max's story. The golden retriever had more adventures ahead, more lives to touch, and more warnings to sound when danger lurked in the shadows. But for today, he had done more than anyone could have imagined. Today, he had been a guardian, a hero, and a silent savior.